Hi, it's Julie, and I'm here to go over how to make the Mother's Day banner. You do have some written instructions in your kit. This will be a quick overview visually of how you'll go about doing that. So the first thing you need to do is gather some items from home. You'll need to get some craft glue. If you requested it at registration, it is inside your kit. You need the like Aleene's Tacky, original Tacky glue. Do not use a hot glue gun for this. You'll need the craft glue so that it'll stick. You also need a black Sharpie, the fine point, which is not the ultra fine, but the fine that looks like this. Again, if you requested that at registration, it's in your kit. You need a paintbrush, a smaller size one like this one or this one. If you have a bigger one, you can make that work too. If you requested that, it's also inside your kit. Then you also might want to get some water to clean your brush, maybe a paper towel or something to dab it on in between. You might possibly need a scissor to trim just a little bit. And then you want a pencil, and then some scrap paper. So gather those items, and your first step is going to be the personalization part of your banner. And that's going to happen on your white muslin. So inside your bag, you have a piece of white muslin that's like this. And this is where you're going to draw or write your personal message. I would suggest that you take some scratch paper. What I did is I just sort of traced around it so I had a practice size, because maybe you're not sure what you want to do on this. So get a couple pieces of scratch paper. You can even start bigger, just on a big piece, jotting down ideas. Do you want to say something? Do you want to say, I love you, you're the best, thank you? If you're making it for a Mother's Day, it could be Happy Mother's Day. You could write a message, you can draw a picture, you could do both. So just decide how you'd like to do that. And you need to decide, is it going to be this way, the drawing and words, or this way? So that's going to be, this is probably the most difficult step, coming up with what you want to do and coming up with something that you like. So you don't have to practice on scratch paper, but probably most people need a little bit of practice. Even if you're doing this as a surprise for someone and you want to make sure you spell the words right, just go ask a grown-up, how do you spell this, and have them write it down for you so you can look at it before you put it on your muslin, okay? So once you've figured that out, what you're going to do, that's when your pencil will come in. And honestly, this works better with a pencil that isn't really, really sharp. This is a little tricky. If you don't have to do this. I chose to sketch out my drawing first in pencil. You can erase it with a good eraser. This pencil doesn't have an eraser, but if you have like a pink eraser you might use at school, you can do a little bit of erasing, or even it won't even show up once you go over with the Sharpie and add your paint. So this part is a little tricky. You sometimes have to sort of hold with your fingers the muslin to stretch it a little bit when you're going to draw. So I just decided I was going to pretend I'm my daughter making this with me. So I wrote, her name is Claudia. So I wrote at the top, Claudia. And you don't have to write it exactly out. And I'm not gonna make you watch all of this. So I just put a little bit of and maybe you think you don't even need to use pencil for that part. Maybe you just want to sort of draw your biggest image or something to center it around. Whatever you'd like to do, this is going to take the longest time. So you probably want to pause the video, or you could watch it all the way through and then start over again if you want to go through it step by step with me. So again, we're going to figure out what our message is. We're going to use a pencil if we want to put it on our muslin. And then once that's on there, you can take your Sharpie, if you chose to use a pencil, and you can go over what you wrote. And this is tricky. I would use your fingers to pull the muslin so it's tight. So here, I'm not going to watch you do the whole thing. Here's my stick figure of me and my daughter. I wrote our names and I wrote the year 2021. You can do something completely different. So you're going to take your time using the Sharpie to do that, okay? So I also should add that you probably should put your muslin on a piece of paper, because this is really thin, so that Sharpie can just leak right through onto your surface underneath. So reuse that scratch paper. If you had one that you decided you didn't like, use it to go underneath your muslin while you are using the Sharpie on it, okay? So then you're just gonna do that, set that aside, and then we're going to add some liquid watercolor to make it look very colorful. In your kit, you have 2 different colors. They might look like they're the same, but actually one is yellow and one is orange. So you can decide how you'd like to do this. If you only want to use one, you can. You're just gonna dip your brush in there, and again, you probably want, this will wash off, so you can do it on your surface and wash it off. I just put it under this. So then kind of a fun thing, if you would like to do that, is sort of to do different dabs of color. And the muslin's really thin, so as you add it, the color will sort of grow, if you will, or spread. So you can decide how you'd like to do it. When I did mine, I liked how it looked interspersing the colors. And it looks really pretty if you cover the whole thing. It makes it very colorful. If you want to clean your brush in between, that's where your water comes in. And now I'm going to add some orange. And it's fine if those colors bleed together also. It just makes a lighter, different shade. So you're going to go ahead and even these colors are complementary, so you don't necessarily have to clean your brush in between them. If they mix, it's not going to make a brown or a dark color. So you could, if you want, but if you want to keep your yellow pure, you will want to wash in between. So I didn't finish this. I don't want you to have to sit here and watch me do this entire thing, but I'm almost finished, and you can see it just has different splotches of color, and I would cover that whole thing. I didn't finish it, so you don't have to watch me. I do have liquid watercolor on my table here, which will come off with a Clorox wipe when we're finished. So then you're going to set this aside, okay? And set it aside so you can see it, because you want to remember which orientation you chose. So portrait or landscape, maybe you're used to thinking of things like that, or vertical or horizontal, because your next step is going to be figuring out your banner layout. The first thing we're going to do is get our burlap banner out of our bag. And if you look at it, you'll see that the one end has something sewn at the top. So we can stick our dowel through that. So that's the top. So you need to find where it's sewn, and there's holes on the side. So that's the top of your banner. And then you also can tell the difference between the front and the back. The back has been sewn over, so the edges will not fray. So where those sewn over things are on the back, that's the bottom. Okay, so you're gonna lay your banner down so that it's face up, and that top part where the doll can fit in is you're looking at it, okay? Another thing to notice is the bottom of our banner. Maybe you're thinking, why are these little fray things here? Well, that's what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and pull those off, because that will make a pretty fringe layer at the bottom. It's a little bit difficult sometimes, they might stick. And don't worry, you can't fray it forever, because we've created a stitch in there that will stop it. So when you get to that stitch, it'll stop. So that just gives it a little frayed look at the bottom. And actually, I haven't even finished mine. I need to start it again, because if you look really closely, you can see where that sew line is. So I didn't even finish mine, but you're gonna go ahead and fray it. So there's some fun fringe at the bottom, and go on up to the sew line, which I did not do. So I don't want you to have to sit and watch me. But okay, so again, we're fringing the bottom. If you have forgotten, look and make sure you know which is the top and which is the bottom. So the underneath part that has the sewing is the bottom, the looped is the top. So after you fringed it, set it back down. And then you need to get out your blue rectangle. Now this is the important part. You want to remember which way you did your drawing or your message. Did you draw it this way or this way? This blue needs to match how you did your drawing on your muslin, okay? So this is the one I just started. So this is a vertical. So I need to figure out where I'm going to put, this is sort of the centerpiece of your design, and we're going to add other elements around it. But it has to match this, because once this is dry, we're going to glue it onto this. So it sort of is like a float frame effect, okay? That doesn't look straight because I'm just holding it funny, but we're gonna do that. So for now, we're just figuring out, we're not gluing or anything, we're just figuring out where are we going to put these items. So again, vertical or horizontal, double check that it matches your drawing. Here's my drawing, it's vertical. So I'm going to place my blue, I'm going to put it in the middle. You don't have to do that. And you can move it around. This is where we're experimenting to see, do we like the way this looks? You also have some rickrack in there, and that looks really cool either right below at the top, right below where that rod's going to go in, or just above your fringe effect. You can decide. So you can move it around. Lay it out there, see what you think. You have 3 large flowers. For balance, you probably don't want to stick all 3 of them in one side in one spot right next to each other, but it actually, maybe that looks great. Play around with it. Experiment. You might need to move this around a little bit. You might like these all at the top together. You might decide you only want to use 2 big flowers. So just go ahead and arrange them in some manner that you like, and you can move these. That's why we're not using glue right now. You also have buttons. The buttons I thought would be kind of fun as the center of the flower, but you don't have to do that. You could decide that you don't want to do that, but play around with that, seeing if you like which one you like best. If you like the buttons, maybe you want some with buttons, some without, right? So this would be an example of the button in the flower. And then you have other small pieces. You have some stars, you have a heart, you have some little flowers, some little twirlies. So again, just start laying those out. Lay them out on your banner. It's not, you can change all of this at any time because right now we're not using any glue. So you might decide that you don't want to use everything that is in here. That is okay. And I'm moving mine around a little bit because I kind of am seeing I have too much of the same color somewhere. Okay, so now I think, okay, I like that. I've decided what things I want to use. I like the way they look. I think everything's in a great spot. I'm gonna double check again that I'm for sure have the fringe down at the bottom and that loop part at the top and that the sewn part is down, okay? And then one more time before I do any gluing, I'm gonna make sure that my blue rectangle matches the style of the photo, of the art that I drew, okay? Or the picture or the words. So double check all of that and then you're ready to start gluing, okay? So what I would recommend is the first thing you're going to do is lift off your blue. Oh, you know what? I realized I skipped a step, but we can do that right now. This is important. You have your wax paper. In your instructions, I told you to slide it under, but we can do that right now. We're gonna slide the wax paper under our banner. And since I didn't tell you to do that right away, you might need to make a few adjustments, like maybe some things moved around a tiny bit while you were sliding that under. So just check that that is good. I'm sorry about that. Check that, make sure that that looks good. You like your arrangement, okay? The wax paper's under there. All right, now we're lifting off our blue rectangle and we're going to just set it aside and we're gonna put the glue on our blue Okay, we're not gonna put our glue on here. We're putting our glue on here. So you want to get your edges and some in the middle. You don't have to have it all covered, but you definitely would be great if you can make some nice lines around your edges, maybe a little squiggle in your middle. Pick it up. Make sure you can kind of hover it here to see if it's in the right spot. And then make sure you like it, it's straight, you like the way it looks, and then you're gonna press, okay? The reason we have that wax paper under there is this burlap has holes in it, it's not solid, so some of that glue is gonna go through, okay? So we're gonna do that. Then you're gonna just continue, I would lift off one piece at a time. That way you'll remember what your layout is like, so you can decide what you're gonna do next. Oh, maybe I'll do my purple flower. Again, I'm gonna set it over here. I'm gonna put my glue on the bottom of my flower, the outside edges, some in the middle. I'm gonna carefully pick that up and I'm gonna place it on there. Now this could get a little bit messy, so either you can have someone help you pick it up and put it on, or you just can wash your hands or have something that you can kind of wipe your hands off with. The glue will dry clear, and then I have my buttons. So when I put my buttons on, I'm just gonna put the glue on the flower where I want the button to go and set the button down, okay? So what you're gonna do is go through all of these elements and glue them down. The rickrack is a little tricky, obviously, because it's kind of narrow. For that one, it might be easiest to make some dots in kind of the peaks and valleys of your rickrack. And I would actually not put any glue on the ends to start with. Glue that center area and then set it down and push. And then what you can do is lift up this little end, put some glue, put it down, lift up the other end, put a dab of glue, set it down. And you can do that with these elements also. If you realize once you've glued down this small heart that maybe part of it's sticking up a little bit, that's okay. You can just kind of reach under a little bit, put a little bit of glue on there and tap it back down, okay? So we're going to glue all of these elements on to our banner. And then we're going to see, is this dry, okay? If this is not dry, you're gonna have to pause and wait for this to dry. Once this is dry, we're going to glue it onto our blue, okay? So maybe flip it over. It's up to you how you'd like to do it. It's not exactly the same size. I'm gonna use this one since it's not wet. So it's not, the blue is a little bit bigger, so we have some nice blue showing around our message or our art. So we're going to put that down in the middle. And for this, once you have it in place, it might be easier to do it this way. Maybe roll it back a little bit, put some glue down, and then press. Roll up the bottom, put some glue down, press, and then again check. Do I need a little bit more glue on one corner or another? So once, again, this has to be completely dry, and you're gonna let it dry. And now we're also gonna have another time where we're waiting. We're waiting until our banner is dry. So when you think, okay, maybe my top is dry, now what you're gonna have to do is, obviously mine's not sticking. I'm gonna move all this stuff off because I didn't glue it down. So pretend that's all glued on. So we're gonna lift it up and flip it over. But again, make sure this is all dry before you do that. And then you're going to have to peel this off. And that's probably going to be wet for a little while. So again, leave it like this until it's dry. How do you know it's dry? Well, you wait for a while, but also if you touch it, it shouldn't be sticky. You shouldn't get anything on your hand. So just be patient, let this dry. So once that is all finished, then you have your dowel and that goes through. Push it through that hook at the top. You have your wire, so you can hang it. So for the wire, it probably is, I believe, bent in half just about, so we could fit it in your bag, but just double check that, okay? So just kind of leave that curve in so you know that it's somewhat even. And then what you're gonna do, and this might be tricky, you might need a little bit of help with this, you're gonna wrap it around, and it just depends how big or small you want it. So wrap it around one side and then flip it over to the other side. And then you want this to be really tight. So after you wrap it very tightly and then pinch it with your fingers, or ask a grown-up or older brother and sister or something to help you, okay? So then it's ready to hang. I don't have mine decorated, but that's okay. I don't want you to follow me. I want you to create your own beautiful banner that you can keep for yourself, give to someone special. So I hope you have a great time with that, and thanks for joining me.